Okay, good afternoon folks, and welcome to the Tour du Monde. Stage 6 today. I hope you enjoyed the rest day yesterday. And the action kicks off in about 3 minutes time, just short of. A lot of climbing today, almost 1,000 meters in the 25.5 kilometers. And it's going to be a tough stage. It's one definitely for the climbers because you can see from the graphic, we're climbing right out of the gate. Yeah, a little bit of spinning to get your legs going, but basically we're climbing from the gate, and you can see from these awesome switchbacks that are currently on screen, it's a tough finish. And it actually ramps up towards the end as well, so this is going to be one definitely for the specialists, and expect the overall to switch around after today's stage, well, after this weekend, because we've got another climbing stage tomorrow. More on that later, but let's have a look and see who's in the hot seat, because there was earlier run-ins. I mean, we've got the series standings on screen, but I'm going to concentrate on who's in the hot seat today. So we'll pull up our GTDB, and I can clearly see Matthias Lundqvist took part in the 0700 running. That's 0700 CET, folks. That would have been 6 o'clock your time in Great Britain. And Matthias took first place with a 54.42. Now that's a fast time and an average watt kilo of 4.72. I think that's going to take some beating. I don't expect to see that time overhauled by anything more than seconds, to be honest. So I think it will be beaten today, but I think it's going to be a very close thing. I think we're only going to see a few seconds in the times at the end of the day. However, we shall wait and see. Christophe Contant, who's a regular contributor to our feed, Christophe got second place with a 55.47, so just over a minute behind Matthias. And Jonty Williamson got third with a 58. So a few riders under the 1 hour, but to be fair, I think we're looking at an hour for the majority of riders today. Obviously, I expect all the main contenders to be coming in under the hour. They're not going to lose 4 or 5 minutes on the top of the leaderboard, but riders a bit further down, they're going to struggle today because this is purely a climber stage. And away we go, 3 seconds to go, we're off the line, and as I say, bit of a gentle start for them, but then you can see it very quickly kicks into the red, and then it's just climbing all the way. So how many we got online? We got 105 riders, which is a really good turnout when you consider that, you know, there are 3 real main run-ins of today's event. This morning's at 7, this run-in at lunchtime, and tonight's evening run-in I expect to see similar numbers. So we're getting really good turnouts on these stages. I mean, the Tour du Monde now has become the premier event on RGT. Yes, we've got the professional row echelon series, but for us amateurs, this is without doubt the series to be in and take part in. We're not going to see any real action, I think, until we get well into the climb. Yes, we're going to see a break up as soon as they hit the climb. We're going to see the strong contenders, but I would expect all the main contenders today to try and stay within touching distance until at least they get to the switchbacks. But we'll see. I think we could see a solo break today. I think the pure climbers could have their day and we could see a solo break. We'll wait and see. We're not going to see a large group like we've been doing the last few days. We can see that I think we've got about 40 riders here in this front group. That's very, very quickly going to be whittled down, and as I say, I'd expect, you know, about a dozen riders maybe to make the run-in until we get into the latter parts of the stage. But anything could happen today on this kind of a stage. I'm not going to call it so early because it would be foolish to do so. You're going to see a lot of riders kicking the heck out of each other on this stage, and we might even see some riders that we've not really shone yet as we come to the paint cams and the zoom room. And you can see we've now got 6 riders in the zoom room. More needed, folks, so please, if you haven't considered getting yourself a webcam and taking part in this, I mean, just look at these riders here. You can see the efforts they're putting in. John Beams always looks the same, but Daniel's there in the middle, Clive Byam, and these riders are just settling in at the moment. I mean, look at Anders Johnson. He just, yeah, what's he doing there? He just looks like he's on a Sunday stroll. I don't know where he is in the main category. And then we've got Henrik. Henrik is, I think this is his first time in the zoom room. We'll come back to it a bit later. I don't know who this Michael is off the front, so we'll keep an eye on him. He's definitely not one of the main contenders in terms of the overall, so he's possibly another new rider to the tour. And as I say, we'll keep an eye on him. We did have a rider on Thursday who was risking spoiling the action, but he was disqualified, so we keep this competition very fair. Anyway, let's have a look what's happening here. Not a lot. The group are more or less staying together at the front, but you can see they're stringing out slightly now as we watch Newnham from OTR, my team, at the back of this group. 50 riders, and riders are already starting to get distanced. The climbing has started. We're at 7.1%, and you know, the bigger riders are going to struggle today. There's no two ways about it. And the less strong, let's say the less strong riders, but the likes of John Beams, John will settle in. This is actually a nice stage for him, and I expect John to be up towards the front until we get into the hairpins, and then I don't think you'll mind me saying, I think John may well struggle to hang on to the true climbers, but he's definitely improving his climbing every stage we see, so you know, who knows what's going to happen. Lundqvist has already gone. He went in the 0700 running of the race. 0700 being CET, folks. Whenever I give times, it's usually in Central European time, which is my time zone. These two could well pull clear. Henrik Mard will be keeping an eye on John Beams without a doubt. Of the two of them, I suspect Henrik is probably the stronger climber. So these two are going to be without a doubt watching each other. They've already got a 40-meter gap. What, the 2/3 of the way up this climb. It does get steeper. You can clearly see from the graphic it gets steeper towards the end, and by the time they get to the end they could even have a 100-meter gap, in which case the group behind are going to struggle to close up to them. But we'll see what happens. I fully expected some riders to try and break away, although I didn't expect it to happen so early. So can the group come back to them when we hit the little bit of green that you can see before it goes orange again? Daniel Schock, he's a very strong rider. We've got Keith, the veteran, behind, John Samut. Daniel's putting in 400 watts, look, trying to keep the distance to the front leaders within catching distance, and he's actually doing so. They were pulling it out, and Daniel's managing to sort of like keep it reasonable. Nick Greenhouse, now Nick, here he is. He's putting in 300, nearly 400 watts. Very strong rider. And I actually made a mistake, so I will correct that now. I said Nick was a former Brompton World Champion, and I was getting a bit carried away with myself. I misread the exchanges we had, and probably not paying proper attention. And yes, while he managed to beat David Miller in the championship, David Miller, the ex-pro, but no, he's not a world champion. But he did get a very, very good finish in the Brompton World Championship. So he's a very strong rider, as is this fella, Shapers from Rassio, his teammate. So they may well have some kind of, I mean, you can see 3 Rassio riders here. Nick Greenhouse is currently wearing the blue jersey, and that's the Sprinters jersey, folks. So I expect Nick to struggle today. I don't think he'll mind me saying that again, along with John. I can call the riders that are going to struggle, and I think Nick will struggle towards the end of this stage. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing John Beams pushing off the front, because he knows he's not going to be able to compete with the true climbers. When I say not compete, if you can call a few seconds behind them not competing, because he's always there and thereabouts. He absolutely buries himself. There goes John Samut. So John will be trying the same as well. He's a slightly bigger rider. He will be trying to get some distance before we get into the latter part of this stage. And really, you can see from the graphic, the true red section is when you hit those switchbacks, and it goes on for a good few kilometers, and that's really where this stage is going to be determined when we get there. I mean, we may well see a rider break away before then and go off on his own, but somehow I tend to think we'll have a few riders by the time we hit the bottom of the switchbacks, maybe even these riders on screen here, because this intermediate section that we're on now gives chances for the riders behind to potentially try and close up the gap, but a strong foursome like these 4 in front doing through and off can very quickly open that gap up, and that's what we're seeing. It's gone from 90 and it's already 120. So these, you can clearly see John coming through there. They're doing through and off. I mean, John out of the saddle, really working hard, pushing the pace on the front. They're wanting to get a good gap, and to be fair to them, they're probably going to achieve that. They may well, this may well be the winning break, even this early. I didn't expect it this early. I did expect some riders to try and push off the front, but this is now getting into the territory of being uncatchable, I think. But never say never. I mean, you've got we've still got some good riders behind in the pack, so some good climbers, should I say, not good riders. They're all good riders. But you can clearly see from the graphics on screen that they're splitting up. I mean, this is second group on the road, and they've already dropped some of the riders that we saw a moment ago, like Soderbergh. So, you know, it's not a large chasing group, really. And this is going to split even more. I mean, they're in the 3% section at the moment, but once it starts to ramp up again, then we're going to see riders struggling. Yeah, I agree with you, Roger. This is a true test today. There's no hiding on this kind of a stage. You've got to either give it everything or you're going to suffer and fall back. And this is not the kind of stage that you can take it easy with. You really have to push. I love stages like this. When I was in my prime as a climber, this was the kind of stage I would really enjoy. Being a lightweight. At my best, I was about 54, 55 kilograms, so I weighed absolutely nothing and could fly up these climbs. So here we are, we're looking at the OTR team Old Gits, or Old Gits. Keith leads them out, obviously. He's one of the top old gits, if you want to, that's what you want to call them, on RGT, is Keith. But Peter Brook-Warvel, also a very, very strong rider. In fact, all these riders are. Lee Marshall, Patrick, Soderberg and Simmons. And you can see they will often group up together as well and work together. I don't think that's going to happen today, though. They'll just be happy to get this stage over with some of those riders. Team Ospreys, you can see Stuart Murray, Mike Aid, Clyde Byham, who's in the pain room at the moment, Nesta, James Brown, and Paul Pudell. Now, Paul, I've been a little bit surprised. I don't know whether Paul is taking like a bit of a back seat, but he hasn't really done as well in this tour as he did in last year's Tour du Monde. But that could be for many reasons. I mean, we've got much stronger riders taking part in this edition because it's becoming more not prevalent. It's becoming more publicised. As we can see, Team Condors, Peter Austin, Roger Hughes, Andy Macker, Mark Newnham, Robin Sanderson, another rider that I have communication with, and Gerald Field. So OTR, that's 3 teams from OTR that they've put out, and here's the 4th. And here you can see some of the ladies like Wendy Gallagher, who goes under the moniker Wendy Wonder Wheels, and I think Wendy is leading the ladies at the moment, the ladies competition. Adrian Bennett, Shane Blackmore, Derek Day, Gordon Jackson, and Paul Nichols, who's the wonder man in terms of these magic roads. Although he's not responsible for this year's Tour du Monde, that honour falls to our good friend Samut's Magic Roads. So sorry, Samir Magic Roads. And here we go, another team. So how many riders have OTR got in this event? As we see, I think this is the 6th team, is it? And again, we've got another one of the ladies, Holly Larson. She's doing well in the tour. I think she's well up there on the podium for the ladies. Yeah, we've got a very strong presence of OTR. Moon Riders, they've got a very strong team. Timo's there, Jonathan Stevens, Mike Wareham, Matt Schilliber, Bjorn Wentz, and Isidoro Panares. Now, Isidoro, does he go? I think he goes by a different moniker when he's actually on the road. I could be wrong, but yeah. Now then, what's happening at the front? Has Daniel been dropped by those 3 riders? No doubt we'll get back to the action. Shane Blackmore, okay, case you can do this. Well, Gordon, are you riding today? You're definitely in one of the teams, so I hope you're riding this. Now you can see that Henrik Mad and John Beams have managed to drop Daniel at this time. What they got? They got 60 meters on him. Is it growing? Yes, it is slightly, but on this section Daniel may come back. Not sure what's going to happen here. Samo is with Daniel, so there's only a couple of meters between them. So those 2 will try and get back onto these 2. But the gap is growing, folks, and we could see the winning break up front by John Beams and Henrik. Now, as I say, Lundqvist did a 54.42 earlier. I'd expect Henrik to overhaul that time, but not by much. I think Lundqvist's time is extremely fast for this course. And oh, I see you're riding tonight with Paul Nicholls. Well, I may well be riding tonight as well, Gordon. Just a little. I might try and finish the stage, but I certainly think I might turn the pedals tonight. So maybe I'll see you there. I really need to ride at least one stage so that I can take part in the prize draw. And I'm still not 100%. I'm still full of cold. I've had a cold now for over 2 months, and I've had a serious bout of hospitalisation as well. So I've got to be careful. I can't take any risks. But this is amazing. I really am surprised to see Daniel and John get dropped by John Beams and Henrik. Yeah, so it has really majorly split up, more so than I fully expected here. I mean, we're watching both front groups now. We're watching the John Beams, Henrik Mard and Daniel Schock and Sam Hutt group side by side, and already the gap is down up to 140 meters. That I don't think is going to get closed up, even though we're very early into the race. And Casper's saying, what about headed down later? Yeah, Casper is a very strong climber, we know that, so Casper could have something to say about the time, but more about that later, Casper. As I say, I'll probably do commentary on my while trying to ride some of the event later on, and if I do, you'll get a mention, sir. But yeah, I haven't discounted you, don't worry. Because the evening session, we're going to see the rest of the climbers that are not taking part in this lunchtime running. So I'd expect a really good competition tonight as well. And I suggest Damon with ZMS is busy with the Echelon League. So you can either join my feed, or Paul Nicholls, I think, may well be streaming as well this evening. Now I'll probably record it and then post it online, whereas Paul Nicholls will probably do it live. We'll see. I might do it live. We'll see how I'm feeling. I don't really want to go live if I'm struggling with my breathing, but we'll see. I mean, this is an amazing effort by Henrik, and just look how cool he looks here in the pain room. I'm just so impressed with Henrik and the way that he sort of like times his efforts, and he never looks like he's in difficulty at all. He seems to be able to pull back the gaps fairly easily, fairly quickly, and he's certainly my pick for one of the riders that's going to contest the overall at the end of the tour, if not the rider. But we'll see what happens. Lots of stages to go yet, and some of the less steep stages could have a say in the competition a bit later on as well. Some of the power rider stages, as we call them. You can see John mouth open, so he's struggling to stay with Henrik here. Gasping for breath. Really working hard to stay on Henrik's wheel here. He won't mind me saying that. Clive Byam just looks nice and cool. Yes, he's breathing heavy. Daniel, head down. You can see him really putting in the effort here. Nick Greenhouse, I've said this before, Nick looks to me to be, I hope we can pick Nick up live during this feed, because I didn't do it on Thursday and I will do it today. We'll have a look at his cadence, Nick's cadence, and see what, but to my mind he's a grinder. He's pushing a big gear, which is fine. That's what I like to do. I was never a spinner. I tried spinning, I used to be able to spin at 90 plus on the hills, but it never worked out as well as pushing. Here we go. Yeah, you can see Nick is definitely a grinder. Now this is my range. This is like high 50s, low 60s. This is what I climb hills at, and we call it grinding. Whereas the true climbers are generally spinning in the 90s, 80s and 90s. Nick is definitely a grinder, and it just means you can push a bigger gear. And I personally, and possibly Nick too, I personally find it doesn't tire me as much as spinning does. I get less tired pushing a bigger gear, and I actually find I'm stronger because I'm an out of the saddle climber. I can climb for long periods of time out of the saddle. So yeah, thanks for pulling that up, Damon. It just proved my point. I just assumed Nick was a grinder, and I'm right. Pardon me. So Nick's going to struggle. He's definitely going to struggle when we get to the steeper sections, because you know, spinning turning the pedals around at low cadences is hard work when you're on the very steep sections. I mean, Samet and Daniel Schock here have now dropped 300 meters behind. Excuse me, I'm gunged up again. Yeah, Beams is one of my favourite riders, Chris. I'm a bit of a fanboy, I'm ashamed to admit, but he's a great rider. He takes part in a lot of activities on RGT, and he's a very good ambassador for the platform because of the way he races, the way he rides, always giving it everything, but also because he's been in the Zoom room in the Pain Cave from the very beginning to prove his, you know, to verify his performances, and that to me is outstanding. More riders should do it. Even the ones that are verified should do it, because we like to see the action, we like to see them live and how much they're suffering. And it's great to see riders coming into the Zoom room. Matthias did earlier on the tour, so yeah. And we're watching the riders there, some of the riders going under the yellow banner. Now the yellow banner, folks, this banner that you're coming up here, this is the halfway point. So the riders have reached the halfway point, but sadly the majority of the suffering, and suffering being those switchbacks, is to come, and it's going to be painful to watch because the gradient gets absolutely silly. It's going to be hard work. Now this is nice to see. The following, shall we say, the second group on the road, if we discount the first four, are nicely coming back together and working as a team, as a group effort, should I say, and that's good to see, because they may well pull back a few meters. It's a superb ride. I love it this morning. Yeah, I wish I could have caught you, Christoph. A bit too early for me with the children, but although they were awake from before 6 o'clock this morning. But yeah, you did a good ride, sir. That was a pretty good ride, 55.47, so well done. That will definitely get you in the top 10. But we'll see. I mean, we've got this evening to go as well. We've got some good riders going this evening. But this stage today, this one we're watching now, I think it will still be a 54-minute time. But I think that Henrik will just overhaul Matthias. And then we'll have to wait and see how Casper Hedidam does this evening. Casper's a previous winner of a mountain stage. So don't discount, I can't get my words out, don't discount him, because he's going to be fighting for this top spot as well. And he's had a little bit of misfortune, so he needs a little bit of luck as well. And don't get me wrong, talking about luck, can play a part in tours like this. You have to have a little bit of good luck and good fortune, and bad luck can totally shatter your dreams. I mean, I'll give you one rider's name who really should be in the top 10 and has dropped well down because of bad luck, and that's Robin Sanderson. He was fighting out the stages in the early part of the tour, and he had a mechanical dropouts in the I think it was the second stage, and then in the third stage he had another mechanical dropout, and he was basically out of the contention in both of those races, and that's difficult to take. Hopefully we'll come back and we'll see him up fighting it out in some of the stages, but yeah, there's nothing you can do when you you know, when you have the dropouts and it puts you out of the race. And it's happened to me on a few occasions as well. Not that I'm racing at this level, but you know, it's still pretty disappointing when you're halfway through a race, you get a dropout and you can't rejoin. Watch Henrik getting out of the saddle. We don't see him getting out of the saddle very often until he's really putting in the watts. So, but he still looks cool, doesn't he? He's not breathing heavy, or he doesn't look to be breathing heavy. Just stomping on the pedals. Looks nice and smooth. Good cadence. And compare that to Nick next to him, and just look at the difference in cadence, and you can see what I mean about a grinder and the spinner. Henrik keeping the cadence really high even when he's out of the saddle. Nick, well, he's probably doing low 50s now as he's out of the saddle. John Beams, John just keeps the power going. It doesn't matter whether he's sat up or stood up or sat down. He seems to keep the same cadence, and he seems to keep the same power. He's just a real powerhouse. Daniel just seems to hunch over the bars and rocking, as you can see, rocking from side to side, turning the pedals around. So a very unique action from Daniel, but he never seems to change much. He does occasionally get out of the saddle, jump out of the saddle, but mostly it's this kind of yeah, that kind of technique that he has. Now this is, like I say, this is second group on the road, if you discount the ride, and they are actually catching up with, it looks like they're catching up with Shock and Samut in front. Is that Samut that's out the front, or is it another rider? I'm not sure here. There's definitely a couple of riders in front of them, so let's have a look. Who's that they're catching? Yeah, so they're catching this group, so it could be that Samut and Shock have either eased up slightly to allow this group to join them, and thereby they'll get some help. Or it could just be that the terrain is telling. So we've got a true second large group on the road. This is the third group on the road, with Back and Reed and Patrick Kios just falling off the back, but I think he may get back on if he's helped with this rider coming past, get on his wheel and get back. Polak. So this is the trick. When a rider comes past you like that, you just grab his wheel and try and help him and try and get pulled back to the group. Might happen. They're struggling, but it might happen here. It looks like it is. So yeah, it looks like you can just see them, two of them at the back there, and they're just closing up this gap. Come on, bit of an effort, lads, bit of an effort. Get on, because if you don't, you're going to be gone. You can't allow even a 12-meter gap to grow, because, you know, it's so difficult to close up. It's a bit easier when the terrain is going uphill. I mean, they're on a 2%er here, so that makes it a little bit easier. If it was flat, then you know the gap can open up very, very quickly. But here you just have to put in a little bit more watts and close the gap up. So we're watching this as probably the 4th group on the road now that we're looking at. We've still got 102 riders, so the majority of the riders are sticking with the race, which is nice to see. But Henrik and John have just, they're another level here today. And when you look at the Tour du Alps, which I covered extensively for OTR, when you look at how John rode that stage and the climbing and how he lost out on some of the climbing stages and how much John has improved his climbing, it's absolutely fabulous. Here you can see what I was saying earlier. John's a spinner, so 90 RPM, give or take. So he keeps it nice and high, and he keeps it pretty constant. He doesn't really switch it around at all. Whether he's in the saddle or out of the saddle, it tends to be a very nice cadence that he manages to keep. Henrik Mann, slightly slower cadence. He's on the 4% section now, but he's not what you call a grinder. This is like mid-range, so high 60s, low 70s, and that's a nice cadence to have as well if you can practice it. Again, I find it a little bit high for me. I'm more in the 50s and 60s now. But it's a personal thing. I'm sure many of these riders have tried. You know, I mean, during the Lance Armstrong era, spinning became very, very popular, and I know from my own club and teammates, and also from the online community. When I was riding over on Swift, that a lot of riders sort of like took up the high cadence fad that arrived with Armstrong, and a lot made good use of it. I tried it, and yeah, for a while I got on well with it. It certainly lowers your heart rate. The idea of doing high spinning is it's supposed to help your heart rate, keep your heart rate down, but I just found I couldn't put out the same amount of power when spinning as I could when grinding, so I went back to my pushing a lower cadence. And as I say, it's a personal thing. Riders will try different techniques and see what works for them, and that's what you've got to do. Get on your trainer, get indoors. I don't think trying outdoors is really suitable unless you can get on these longer climbs. If you've got climbs in your backyard and you can get on the longer climbs, then by all means try spinning. But you can't really practice spinning on flat terrain. You really need to have a decent climb. So doing it indoors is the ideal situation to practice and try it out, because you can monitor your power output as well, and actually see whether you're getting higher power from a lower or a higher cadence, or whether you're maintaining your power when you're doing both. I mean, so we're on to the switchbacks, which are absolutely amazingly rendered by Samir's Magic Roads. Just look at them. Doesn't it look amazing? So Daniel, as I say, hunched over the bars most of the time, but now he's out of the saddle, pushing on the climb. Clive Byam just looks so relaxed, doesn't he? A little bit of rocking from Clive, but he just looks so relaxed. Yeah, he's breathing heavy. as is John Beams. Look, John mouth open, gasping. John will be doing his very, very best to hang on to Henrik here. I mean, what an amazing ride! Because John isn't a true climber; he's a very, very good all-rounder. Whereas I think Henrik is more of a climber than John, and I believe we'll leave him behind when we get to the steeper section. And I'm sad to say that because John's one of my favourites, but Henrik will have the advantage when it gets to that really steep section of these switchbacks. I mean, they start off gentle, as you can see, 2%. We're into the switchbacks now, but it really gets brutal higher up. The higher up you go, the more brutal it becomes. Yeah, I agree with you, Matthias. High cadence does take a lot of practice. And some people like it, some people don't. Some people can never optimize it, can never get it right. It does take practice to become efficient at it. I used to coach riders, and I used to coach and tell them to try the high cadence thing, but then I realized that the riders were actually going backwards, some of them, and so in the end I just told them to find something they were comfortable with, and then we'd work on increasing the power. I realized that high cadence wasn't the be all and end all, and yeah. Folk is missing the race. Yeah, I'm sad to see you not taking part, Folk. I do hope you can come back, mate. I mean, I know how you feel because I've just spent more than 2 months off the bike, and I haven't ridden for over 2 months. I haven't been back on the bike yet, and mine was COVID related. So I'm looking forward to getting back on, and I'm just about ready now, I think. Not to race again, but to get back on the bike. So I look forward to seeing you, sir. Maybe we'll both get on at the same time. Okay, Paul. Yeah, I'm looking forward to maybe, like I say, I might try and ride the stage and just take it nice and steady. So I'm going to be riding probably at the back. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. But it'd be nice if you're streaming as well. I may stream it, or I may record it and then stream it later. I don't really want to go live if I have a, shall we say, an episode. So I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So I may well record it and then edit it. But yes, it'll be great to see you later. I bet you're loving this this magic road that Samir's done, aren't you? You being a magic road builder yourself. I mean, this is just stunning. And the corners look very, very smooth. Samir looks like he's really really done this very, very well. Now you can see from the graphic it starts now to get into the 10% plus section. They've basically got now onto the more steeper part of the ride, and it's amazing to see John pushing out front. Like I say, he's improved beyond all recognition in terms of last year. Not last year, well yeah, the end of last year when he ran the Tour de Wout. He's definitely improved his climbing because he's now a contender, as you can see in this stage. Though I still think Henrik will have the advantage when this gets to the really, really steep section. I mean, you might well think, well, Derek, they're at almost 10% now, isn't that steep? Well, yeah, 10% is steep, But trust me folks, this is going to get a lot steeper. It kicks up, and so there's a fair bit of suffering for these climbers at the moment. I mean, the really amazing thing is that the group behind have managed to close up, and so Casper's telling us, Casper's a spinner. Casper does 85 to 100, which is high cadence, especially if he's doing 100. And that's one of the reasons, Casper, why I say some people love the spinning, because it does save your legs. If you can do it, and you can do it correctly, not only does it lower your heart rate, but it does save your legs. Spinning takes less effort on your legs, but I just can't. I tried it for a long period, for years actually, long period of time, and I just couldn't get the same power out. I need to be able to feel my legs. I mean, I've only got a very small body, but I need to be able to feel the legs. I've got very wiry, muscly legs for such a small person. More 25% sections. No, they don't need that today, Paul. I know you, yes. But no, I think this is going to be tough enough. I mean, what? Yeah, we've still got a good few kilometres to go yet, and I think this is tough enough. Okay, are you going to ride this evening then, Patrick? This evening's session? Later today? So I take it you're gonna ride the evening session along with Paul and Casper. So I'll look out for you, sir. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this evening session. It should be very interesting. And here's Samir. This is the lad that's done the course, Samir. His roads are wonderful. He's worked with me on and some of the stuff I haven't even shown yet. But don't worry, Samir, I do intend doing so in the future. But yeah, Samir's roads are fantastic. There's an event coming up later in the year, folks, called the White Rose Classic that Samir's done for me, and more about that later. But absolute class when it comes to building these roads, both in terms of what you see on screen and in terms of the smoothness for the riders. So now we're seeing Cervello has managed to get himself up into third place. He's 300 metres behind, well, nearly 400 metres behind, 370. So he's not going to catch the leaders, although he is making an effort here. He's definitely pegging it at about the 360 mark. But he's not going to catch them. Sorry, Cervello, but I'm going to stick my neck out and say that, because I genuinely believe that Henrik and John will ensure they're not caught. They'll be keeping an eye on you to see how close you get in, and I think they'll ensure they're not caught. I mean, John is really suffering here. Look at Nick. You need more light, or you need to draw that curtain, Nick, and get a lamp out front so that we can actually see you in your pain cave. Stomping on the pedals. Yeah. And look at Henrik. High cadence. There he goes, look. Absolutely spinning it. Looking, and it just looks, this is what I mean about, if you can do it, it saves, it saves your heart rate. He's getting out of the saddle now. I mean, I saw him twice, 3 times. I saw him blowing there. So Henrik is, yeah, while he might be trying to hide it, he's working hard here. He's blowing again there, look. So John's making him work hard here. He's blowing. So he's not looking as composed as he was earlier. Which is good to see. It means that John's doing his business. As we watch Rowbottom, 17th place. I mean, this lad's a good rider, but he'll be suffering today. I think he's more suited to the rolling terrain. And I think we can say the same for, I mean, definitely Nick's wearing the Sprinters jersey and he's still managing to hang on to 20 first place. I mean, how cool is that? You know, there he is with the blue Sprinters jersey on his back, and he's hammering it up this climb. I mean, that's pure class. And Sondergaard, Sondergaard's one of the heavier riders as well, and to actually stay in contention here, as is Nick Hall. So these riders are the riders that will, and Tim Moss, these riders are the riders that you see on the sprinting stages, or you know, they show well on the rolling stages. Struggle a bit on the hills, and they definitely struggle in the mountains. If you can call 20th placings struggling, they're never going to take the win over the true climbers on this kind of a stage, but the effort they put in is fantastic. We love it. It's one of the reasons why I do enjoy covering these events. Now we've got 2.8 kilometers to go with John and Henrik at the front. Could we possibly see John Beam pull out a win today? Could he overhaul and drop Henrik? I'm saying no. I'm still choosing Henrik for the win today, because I think he's just slightly the better climber at this point in time. But John, as he's proved today, is definitely closing that gap. And I don't mean on this stage. I mean, he's closing the gap in terms of performances. He's becoming a much stronger climber, as well as one of the best all-round riders here on Argentina. So, and to be fair, I think John will have something to say about the overall. He took the Tour de Alps with a very good overall performance for the 2 weeks, and he's going to be wanting to win this one too. So there's going to be some good battles between these two riders, because I think there's not much between them. And I think both of them are enjoying each other's company and the battles they're having between themselves. You know, they're both from the same team. I imagine they've got an awful lot of respect for each other. And I think very evenly matched. So we'll see what happens. 2 kilometers to go. And the big question is, are they going to stay together right to the end? Let's well, obviously we're going to stay here and watch what happens. You could see John was going in the red there, Henrik flicking into the red as well, so they're both putting in above threshold efforts. I mean, John Beam's pushing 5.5 watts, you saw there. So yeah, I agree with you, Paul. I've just opined on that you know, they work well together, and I think they've got the utmost respect for each other as well. There's not much between them, to be fair. It's going to be an exciting second week of the tour, there's no doubt. We've got Casper Hedidam going this evening, and like I say, my one worry with Casper, I do think he'll put in a great ride this evening, but my one worry is that Will he have anybody else? Because I don't know who signed up this evening. Will he have anybody else to push or pace him this evening? I don't know. I don't know who's riding, because that's what he needs. You can see how well these two have worked together and have pushed each other. You know, and that makes a big difference in terms of time and effort. You know, if you've got somebody riding along with you, pushing you, taking turns on the front, and then you take over and you take your turn, it pushes the pace up. If Casper hasn't got that this evening, then he could struggle to match this time. Even though he's a great climber, he could struggle. Now we're going up to the red banner here, the Flamme Rouge, red kite as we call it. 1 kilometre to go. So who's your money on, folks? Can John put in a huge effort towards the end? I mean, it does stop climbing here. When I say stop climbing, it does get a little bit flatter. It's still uphill, but there's a bit of a plateau once they get over this section that they're on at the moment. You can just see John approaching the top of this rise, and then it sort of like plateaus out for a little bit. The gradient drops. Doesn't drop all the way to zero, but it does drop back down into the green. And so we could see an all-out sprint here for the finish. So maybe John could take this stage. I'd dismiss this final few meters. I mean, it is only about 500 meters, the green section, and I'd completely, yeah, forgotten that John could well have the advantage here. He's the stronger rider when it comes to this kind of terrain. So while Henrik had the advantage on the climb, John was able to stay with him. John's got the advantage now, and this could be a John Beams win. I picked Henrik, so I'm going to stick with Henrik, but this could be a John Beams win. Let's see. This is exciting, folks. Come on, get back to the single action. We must be getting to, here we go. We're getting into the finish. Henrik is trying to get in front. John's on his wheel. John's just, and there he goes. John's putting in his effort now. There we go. Can you get it? Can you get it? Can you get it? Yes, John Beams has got it. Well done. And there's time bonuses, folks. So John will get an extra 30 seconds. Well done, John Beams. Fantastic. Now, something I'm going to point out, because it's something that I noticed online this morning. Notice how the graphic came up almost immediately showing the winner. And the winner we saw going over the line, John Beams, was declared the winner in the software almost immediately. Now, there was a race the other day on Swift, and it was a high category race, shall we say, one of the pro races, and the winner came in about 12th place in the graphics and was given first place. So the winner that you see over the go over the line in Swift isn't always the winner of the race, according to the way they work out the dynamics, which to my mind is a complete crap. I mean, you don't want to be watching a race, watch everybody sprint and see riders going over the line and then be told, oh, okay, the rider that came in 12th place on screen is the rider that actually won it, because of the lag. I mean, that's just stupid, and it's something I'm surprised Swift haven't fixed, to be honest, because this is how it should work. Riders coming over the line in real time, like Peter, a really good 4th place, Peter, well done, lad. And yeah, we're watching these riders coming in now in real time as we watch Neva taking 5th place. Linden from Poco, he'll get 6th. Another good rider and another good climber. But, you know, to be fair, John and Henrik, the they're a level above, which is why they were able to break clear and get such a good gap. And the riders behind won't mind me saying that. They've got work to do to close that gap. And don't forget, John has worked so hard on this stage of his riding, on the climbing. You know, he wasn't at this point last year, but he's put in the effort, and now he's reached that level. And if John can do it, anybody can do it. Well, you've got to put in the commitment, obviously, that John does. But it just proves that you can raise your game. You can get to the next level if you're prepared to put in the work, as we watch Olsen, the Dane, coming in. So it's down to these riders really to try and close the gaps, and you know they've just got to raise the game if they want to compete with the like of Henrik and John and Casper and the other top climbers. So this is, and there's Isifor from Moon Riders. So this has been a really good stage, folks. It's not gone exactly how I thought it would. I genuinely believe that a few of the other riders would have stayed. You know, maybe the likes of Jonathan and this lot would have stayed with Henrik and John, but they just proved too strong. They're that next level, and it's a difficult gap to close. Now then, what did I tell you folks when I said that I believed that John and Henrik would overhaul Matthias's time, but I said there would only be seconds in it. Okay, and I'm not gonna, well, I am gonna say I told you so, because there's 12 seconds in it. Matthias Lundqvist got a 54.42 and John Beams got a 54.30, as did Henrik. So 12 seconds difference, and I did say it would only be seconds. So yes, I am saying I told you so, because it just shows that when I do commentary like this, I have such a good feeling for the riders, having watched them and having commentated. I can generally get it pretty much close or spot on, and I'm proud to say today I got it spot on. So now the big question is, and let's have some comments, see what you guys think. What do you think Casper will achieve this evening? Casper Hedidam. We know he's a top climber. He's won climbing stages outright in other tours. So can Casper overhaul John and Christoph? Answers on a postcard, please. What do you think? Anyway, we're looking at the top 20 on screen. Some really good performances there. Rocket Roy. I mean, Rocket Roy, he's a big lad. And an 11th place there with a 57.03. So that's a pretty good performance. Keith, the veteran, he gets a 57.04. Another great performance. John Sammet, he's more of a flatlands, right? Well, rolling rider, 57.12. I mean, I could go on. There's so many good performances there. Torleif Solly, who was leading Thursday's stage after the early run-ins, he came in 19th place. So some really good all-round performances here. But Peter Brook-Ravel in 4th place, that's an absolutely fantastic ride from Peter. As we watch his teammate Austin coming over the line. Now we are going to hang about. What we got? We're into the 1 hour mark at the moment. We calculated, and I'll say we, me and Damon calculated earlier, that we could be hanging around for about another 30 minutes. But I'm not sure. This has been a pretty fast stage in terms of the front runners, but what are we looking at lower down the order, and how many riders have we got still to come in? Still a good number, almost 100 riders to come in. 98 to come in, and we're looking at about 5 kilometers difference. So 5 kilometers for some of these riders, yeah, we're probably looking at 20 minutes, another 20 minutes minimum. So we're going to be around for about the 1 hour and 30 mark, I think. Now, I know Damon's working this evening. He's off doing his other broadcasts, and I'm planning on doing a little bit of a broadcast maybe, but certainly doing a little bit of a ride later, joining Paul Nichols, my teammate. I won't be riding with him, he's much faster than I am, but yeah, makes the teams need to work together. In turn, that can help in solo GC standings. Yeah, I mean, just a superb effort, Paul, and that should really pull, the fact that they got 1-2 should really pull them up the team standings. I'm not quite sure who's leading the team standings at the moment. Maybe somebody could, maybe James is listening and could give me a lowdown on that. I'm normally a little bit more involved with what's going on afterwards, after the events have finished, but the way things have been for me this last couple of months, I've not really been in touch. I'm just so glad to be back, but it's been hard. Here's Robin Sanderson, who I mentioned earlier, 43rd place, but Robin has had the most awful bad luck in this tour. So I'm really glad to see him riding and coming in as we watch Macchu, his teammate, as well. Yeah, I hope the rest of the tour goes well for you, Robin, and you can take back a few places on GC. What we generally do, folks, is hang around and watch the majority, if not all, the riders coming into the finish, and we'll probably do that today. We're restricted to about 1 hour 30, so I'm hoping that all the riders will be in before then. Let's see what happens. I desperately need a cup of tea or coffee. As we watch Mike Weston from SDW. Now Mike runs his own series. I think it's on a Thursday evenings, the SDW series. I know I've covered at least one of them, and very good racing it is too. So if you're not doing anything else on a Thursday evenings, you could look up Mike's race series. As you see him going into the red here, 9 watt kilos, putting in a really big effort to finish. Yeah, well done, Mike. Nice to see riders when they do that. Casper Sorensen. We've seen a lot of Sorensen, but not so much in this tour. So no doubt he'll have his day. No, I don't drink whiskey, Paul. No, I used to be a gin man back in the day, but I haven't had an alcohol drink for a long time now. I like wine, but I don't drink that much alcohol. I suppose having a very young family at my age, it's hard work. I love being a dad. I love being a parent again after all this time. But at my age, it's very, very hard work being an elderly parent. And I'm sure those of you that have been there know how it feels. I'm constantly tired, but I love it. My children are my life. As we watch Mr. Miller from SDW try and get a place, and he has done. He's just got to manage to get a place on the line. As we watch Jabberee coming in, Fiend coming in from OTR. I think it's Gordon, isn't it? Yeah. As we watch the female Solly. Now I don't know what Solly's, is it Helen? Helen Solly coming in from Denmark. I've got a really good friend lives in Denmark. I visited him, and he's from Yorkshire. He's a Yorkshireman, Steve Lindley. I visited him in Denmark by riding there. I cycled all the way to his house just to say hello from my home here in the Netherlands. And Denmark is a beautiful place to cycle. I mean, the Netherlands is nice, but Denmark is pretty special too. Really good cycle infrastructure in both countries, but Denmark in particular has a superb system of cycle paths, as does Holland. I mean, yeah. The problem you've got here in the Netherlands is, while you've got probably the best cycling infrastructure in the world, the leisure cyclists or the commuters, the craziest I've ever known and ever met. They're absolutely mental. They don't take any care, and it's quite dangerous actually for me riding on the cycle paths, because you're constantly having to give way to these cyclists, and it's not you shouldn't be the one having to give way, but if you don't, you're going to end up stacking it multiple times a week. So yeah, I love the Netherlands, but I hate the commuting cyclists, because they don't pay any attention at all. We watched Jay Reid from Pedalers and Newnham. So it's nice to see these riders lower down the order, coming in, finishing off the climb, getting onto this less steep section. But what a fantastic race from John Beams to actually manage to stay with Henrik on the really steeper sections, and then take the win on the flatter. That's probably one of, I think John will not mind me saying so, that's probably one of the best rides I've seen from him. Definitely. A really class act and a really class win. Soderbergh here, I'm a little bit surprised that Soderbergh hasn't done better in this tour. And that's no disrespect meant at all. I just think you're capable of a little bit more. But you know, when I make comments like that, folks, I don't know the backgrounds. I mean, it's same as somebody could say of me that, you know, I should do better than I do. I don't even race at all now, given my background, but they don't know the full circumstances. I mean, it seems like ever since 2018 I've been fighting illness. I haven't really had a prolonged period where I've been able to train. Every time I've got fit, I've taken another setback, and because I am a good rider, if I'm fully fit, and like I proved when I used to ride the transcontinental races, I am a good rider, but I just haven't been fit since, well, basically since I had the accident in 2018. And although I have raced since then, I've never really been able to perform. And you know, there could be many reasons why some of the riders that I think maybe should be higher in the orders aren't doing so. It could be that it's not their, it's not in their training cycle. They're racing purely and simply to get fit again. Or it could be the fact that they're winding down after a hard season. That's another good vibe for why somebody is not probably performing as well as they can do. I mean, we saw it on Thursday. We had some riders riding on Thursday that I think were capable of far, far better performances than, although it ended up being a bunch sprint, but there can be so many reasons why why riders are not performing. Clive Byam, yeah, you can tell Clive doesn't like the hills, Paul, but he always puts in a good effort, doesn't he? He always gives it everything. So yeah, let's see how you do tonight, sir. You need to put in a good effort. No pressure on you. I might see how much time I can stay, how close I can stay to you for at least 100 meters tonight. Oh, we watch another one of my teammates, Mr. Murray, coming over. So here we go. Now we got the top 30, and what I'm saying about really good riders, folks, I mean, a lot of these riders that you see in lower down the order, like Timo and Daniel Schott and Nick, they're big, sort of like not sprint riders, although Nick is currently holding the blue jersey for sprint jersey, but this kind of terrain just does not suit them. And it's not that they're putting in poor performances, they're putting in actually fantastic performances to stay close. And I am just so impressed with them, because on this kind of a stage, a sprinter can generally lose a lot of time, and yet they've managed to peg it down to what, 4 minutes? So that is pretty impressive. Well, less than 4 minutes. So yeah. And they'll have their day, but the sad thing is that if, as we saw on Thursday, we had 30 riders coming into the finish, and it ended up being a big bunch sprint at the end, and a very close race. We couldn't call the winner, which is why I'm so glad we've got this software that shows the instant race winner, because we couldn't call it from the graphic on screen. You just couldn't see who went over the line first. It was literally a thousandth of a second difference, and or 100th of a second, should I say, difference. But the sad thing is that the sprinters stages, you're only ever going to see seconds between like first and 30th, as we did on Thursday, and that means that the sprinters really don't have the opportunity to claw back time on the sprinting stages. On the rolling stages or on the power stages, then yes, they can potentially grab a little bit of time back on some of the other riders. Although riders the likes of Henrik and John Beams can actually do so well on the rolling stages and be in contention that even the bigger riders like Tim Cook and Nick Greenhouse, even the riders can't really grab too much time from the likes of John Beams and Henrik and Casper, purely and simply because they're so strong on the rolling stages as well as on the mountain stages. There isn't that big a difference, whereas in a real tour like in the Tour de France, the difference between the mountain climbers and the sprinters is huge. I mean, you're talking a lot of time difference, whereas here there's not that much. And also, you're not talking about the same kind of distances, are you? Which is why the difference is not so pronounced. But you're only talking about seconds that the sprinters can potentially claw back on a lot of the stages. So these kind of tours are never going to go to a sprinter. I'm sorry to say that. They're just not. It's just not going to happen. You need to be an all-rounder to stand a chance of winning this kind of a tour. I mean, John Beams is the ultimate all-rounder, but he's now becoming a class climber as well. And the danger there is that, you know, if he continues to improve, then it could become quite dominant on the platform. But all that means is that the other riders would have to raise their game, and I think we have riders on this platform more than capable of doing so. So we've got plenty of riders that can raise the game to John's level and stay with him. And Henrik is, you know, Henrik's leading this tour at the moment, and I've no reason to believe that Henrik can't take the tour. I think he's going to have a battle on his hands, but yeah, it's going to be exciting towards the end of next week, because we do finish with mountain and hilly stages. We don't finish on the flat, we finish with mountain and hilly stages. And so next weekend, when this tour wraps up, it's going to be very, very exciting. But there's a long way to go before then, and some good stages, folks. We've still got the Queen stage to look forward to. I mean, last year that was awesome, and that's the one that really sorted out the race for John, not for John, for Melville, the Queen stage. And I think it could well do so again this year. It could be the stage that really cements the overall. More about that later, folks. We're not there yet. We've got some stages to go in between, as we're still watching the riders coming in, and we're still checking on. We got the 60 to 90 graphics on screen now, and you can clearly see some really good names in amongst these riders as well. I mean, it's not fair to really call out individual riders, but a few do stand out. And one name I'm just seeing from the graphic on screen is Anne Y. So it's lovely to see Anne on the road. Anne Y became quite famous, or infamous, whichever word you want to use, during the Tour du Alps, where she stuck it out for every single stage, and she must have been suffering when we did the Queen stage, and it took her 4 hours, give or take, to complete. But she stuck it out for those 4 hours and finished every single stage of the tour. And we gave away a prize. It was a prize draw, completely random. And we gave away that prize. I think it was just over £100, to the rider that had ridden, or to all the riders that had ridden every stage went into a draw. I don't think there were that many actually that had actually done every single stage, but Anne was in the draw and she won it, and she also won another draw as well. So she ended up with a fairly tidy prize of about £170. And so all the effort she put in was well rewarded, and it couldn't have gone to a nicer person as well. So fantastic to see as we watch Anne's other half, Mr. Y, here in the middle of these three riders. And Yeah, we've got a similar kind of prize draw this year during the Tour de Monde. RGT Community News, I don't know if we can put the graphic on the screen, but RGT Community News are offering, here we go, there we go, right on cue, Damon, thank you, are offering a £100 prize giveaway for anybody that takes part in one stage. This time it's not every stage you have to complete. This time all you have to do is one stage. And that's one of the reasons why, it might be a bit selfish of me, but that's one of the reasons why I want to ride a stage. I want to go into this draw and have a chance of that £100, because that would make a lovely present for the girls. And so I'm going to ride a stage, might be this evening, might be later on in the tour, but I'm going to ride a stage and finish it to ensure that I can go into this prize draw. And that's all you have to do, folks. Head along to facebook.com RGT Community News, the webpage, to have a look for more details. But basically all you have to do is sign up and ride one complete stage. It can be any stage, flat, hilly, mountain, whatever you want. Ride one stage and you'll be put into the random prize draw. And anybody can win it. You don't need to be the first rider, you don't need to be the last rider. Anybody can win it. It's going to be completely random. It's going to be done live on screen at the end of the tour. So after the final stage, I think Keith Aitchison is the lad that will do it with his Wonder Wheel. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That should be there should be a lot of interest in this prize draw, and you never know. A couple of surprises, that prize giveaway could well be increased. Let's see. I mean, we sometimes get the sponsors, of which we've got half a dozen sponsors of this tour. Sometimes the sponsors even decide to throw in an extra prize. So let's see what happens. And this is Anne that you're watching on screen now. That was Anne Y. There you go. Yeah, thanks, Paul. We love to watch all the riders finishing and coming in, mate. It can be hard work sometimes, especially when you consider that Damon, more so than me, you know, Damon puts on sometimes more than one stream a day. I know he's working this evening with another big stream. So yeah, it's hard work, and you have to give Damon credit for that. A bit less so for me, but even I'm working later on this evening, so we do enjoy sticking around, because our thought is that every rider, you know, deserves a mention if they're prepared to stick with it. And we've had, what, 98 riders sticking with it today. We had 106, I think, on the line, so we've only lost 8 riders, which is fantastic. I hope we get a similar turnout for this evening's run. I don't think we will get 100 riders, but we could do. There's still a lot to go. For me, the real excitement is going to be, are there any more climbers that can ride with Casper this evening, as we watch Anne here looking really smooth. So yeah, have we got any more riders that can hang on with Casper and help him try and beat this 54-minute 30-second ride from John Beams and Henrik Maard? I mean, the fact that those two finished so close together was amazing, but the fact that they managed to knock off 12 seconds from Matthias Lundqvist's time that he set this morning at 7 o'clock. And Matthias will now be wondering what he could have done had he ridden this stage with, you know, with John and Henrik. I wonder if that thought has crossed his mind. Oh, I could have stayed with them and probably taken the win. So yeah, but that's the risk you take. Well, it's not so much a risk. That's the chance you take when you ride a different time slot to most of the other riders or most of the favourites. And I think it's fair to say Henrik and John were always going to be the favourites, or joint favourites. I'd put Lundqvist in amongst them. Had he ridden today, he would definitely be a favourite in the same time slot, as would Casper. So, and I hope later in the tour we can see the four of them all riding the same stage and battling it out. We've seen that on some of the midweek sessions, because basically they have to ride the evening sessions together. But next weekend I'm really hoping that we get all the true contenders and all the best climbers riding together for at least one stage, because it's more exciting when you get the very best riders or the very best climbers all riding together. Now Stu's pulled over to the side of the road with 2 kilometers to go, as us first. Now this could be cramp, both showing 0 watts, or it could be a dropout, but my guess is it could well be they're on the very steep section. They could just be taking a break, because the legs must be screaming. They've probably got cramp. And I say that as somebody that it's happened to. I'm very, being an ex-coach, I'm very aware that you have to keep fluids and everything going in, and electrolytes, etc., on the longer stages. But it has happened to me on numerous occasions when cycling indoors. I don't think it's ever happened to me when cycling outdoors. A long time ago, but not since I became what I would call an endurance cyclist. 24 hours is like a walk in the park for me to cycle 24 hours. So once I got into that kind of territory of being able to cycle without, I can cycle 24 hours without food. And once you get into that kind of fitness, in terms of endurance, not in terms of speed, but in terms of fitness, cramp is something you just don't worry about. The most important thing is to keep the fluids going in. Generally, when I say no food, what I mean by that is I generally, if I'm doing a 24-hour time trial or a 24-hour training ride, I generally use liquid food. I generally don't eat solid food. I'll use liquid food or rice pudding, milky rice pudding. Yeah, and what more can we say, Paul? We've said it all about Anne. I love to see her on the road, and she always finishes the stages, which is amazing. A bit sad to see that it looks like Furska's got going again, but Stu looks to be stuck at the moment. Paul Smith doesn't look to be going either, 98th place. And we won't be waiting around for Paul because he's showing 0 watt kilos and 8 kilometers to go. So there's obviously an issue with Paul Smith. But we will probably capture. I'm just gonna have a word with Damon. I know Damon's. Yeah, we're gonna actually wrap up after Anne comes in. Sadly, I know there's a couple more riders on the road, but because they've had issues, we can't really. Damon has to work this evening. I have to get off as well because I'm planning a broadcast this evening. So. We're going to wrap it up as soon as Anne comes in. She's getting to the finish now, 200 and odd metres. Call it a wrap because Damon's working. And all I can say, folks, is thank you very, very much for watching. It's been a fantastic stage. Superb win with John Beams overhauling Henrik right at the very death. Here comes Anne Y. Absolute superstar, 3.8 watt kilo and above to finish. Fantastic ride, Anne. And here we go. This is tomorrow's stage, folks, the Great Wall of China. And I'll tell you more about this tomorrow, but I've actually walked this. I've actually been to China when I did my round the world cycle tour, and I actually walked the Great Wall of China. So I've got pictures, live pictures of this place. It's a beautiful bit of architecture, sadly falling into disrepair in some sections, but yeah, looking forward to that tomorrow. And I'll see you later on this evening, those of you that are going to hang around and check us out. Don't forget, me and Paul Nichols will probably both be streaming. So thanks for watching, folks. Stay safe, and we'll see you later. Bye for now.